All right, guys. Hi, thank you guys so much for being here. I just heard a good joke coming in. This is where all the control freaks are today. So thanks. Hope you guys weren't too full. Hi, no worries. Welcome. So back in 2020, right in the middle of a pandemic, I helped start a medical home health agency and a hospice agency. During the pandemic, right? You guys remember the pandemic? Everybody was disappearing, pure chaos, things were getting shut down. And a lot like you guys, I traded my 40-hour work week for never-ending nonstop work. Every holiday, every weekend, every problem, every hat was your job, right? And so my health took a hit. I was losing hair, I was gaining weight, my relationships were falling apart. I'm surprised I'm married still. My husband stuck by me though. My kids were always yelling at me to put my phone away, that I had enough screen time for today. But I kept telling myself this, if I don't do it, who will? Do you guys ever feel like you're telling yourself that? So one day, my husband finally stepped in and he said, "Sweetheart, let's go to Dollywood." Is anybody from Tennessee? Tennessee. So he dragged me, packed me up, but before I could go, 3 weeks earlier, I trained a scheduler. I poured my heart and soul into the scheduler, and I get there to Dollywood, but things weren't going smoothly. My phone kept ringing, nonstop texts, and she honestly started more problems than she solved. And in the middle of it all, she went to lunch, and she never came back. And so this is me crying, passed out on a bench at Dollywood. My kids took this picture of me, and I hated it for so long. I hated it because I realized that I'm always trading my time. I'm always trading my time with my family, because if I don't fill a shift, that means someone else's family's not going to get dinner tonight. Do you guys feel that way? And so in the middle of it all, there I was again, trying to do everything from my phone from Tennessee. So that time in Tennessee was my breaking point, but it was also my turning point. I realized that delegation wasn't something I failed at, but it was something that I had to learn. It wasn't just about handing off tasks. It was about finding the right people and trusting them to carry the load. Since then, I've worked hard to figure out how to delegate in a way that actually works. I learned to hire people that shared my same vision, how to set clear expectations, and this is key, you guys, to protect my boundaries and time. Most importantly, I realized that delegation isn't about losing control, it's about making space for what really matters. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. So this story is not just a personal journey. It's a universal lesson in leadership and growth. Is that not why we're here at this AFM? Because we're leaders. We're the ones in charge of growing our agency. So as we gather here in this mastermind, I want to remind you guys that the path to success doesn't have to be a lonely one. I've been talking to a lot of owners, and I wonder how many of you guys agree that sometimes when you become an owner, it's very lonely at the top. When you're one of the key managers, sometimes you can't talk about what you're going through because no one else can relate. But in order to be successful, we have to build strong teams, cultivate trust, and empower others to share in our vision. So today we're going to explore the art of delegation, develop strategies that actually align with our values, and create the space that we need to focus on strategic priorities. If you want to transform challenges into opportunities for growth and innovation, then you're in the right room. If you want to take back your time and build a company that you don't grow to hate, then this mastermind is for you guys. So let's get at it. A lot of what I'm going to teach you guys comes from three main sources. By reading countless business books, I love reading. Getting into the room with some of the smartest people I can find, and the 18 years of hands-on experience of starting and growing healthcare businesses. So before my little kerfuffle in Tennessee, the first home health agency I started was in 2008 with my family, and we started a hospice agency, and we had that company for 11 years before we sold it in 2019. So after crying myself on a bench in Tennessee, I knew that something had to change. As owners, if we can't find the right people, where does that leave us as owners and managers, right? Everything gets put back on our plate. So I wanted to figure out if there was a better way. So I took everything I've learned in the past 18 years and I poured that into building my own virtual assistant firm, Ascension Business Solutions. And I've spent the last 3 years perfecting how to support home care owners and companies like yourselves. So from 2022 to 2023, we grew 627%. And that wasn't beginner's luck, because last year, we grew another 447%. By focusing on delegation and building a strong team while being process-oriented, we've scaled our company from having just a few VAs to being able to provide life-changing opportunities to over 160 virtual assistants. Today, I'm proud to say that we serve over 80 home care agencies from New York to Hawaii. And by keeping you guys, our clients, at the center of everything we do, we've been able to earn the badge of trusted and approved vendor of some of the biggest franchises in America, including Synergy. I'm not sharing this to impress you guys. I'm sharing this to impress upon you the power of delegation. It is the single most important skill that's allowed me to achieve this level of success while also teaching home care owners to do the same. And so, if you guys aren't convinced yet, let's bring in the big guns. So, I'm a big believer in learning is earning, right? How did you guys learn how to do home care? We all had to start somewhere. And so, if you guys love reading books, or if you don't love reading books, these are some of the 3 most influential books that have changed my life. Do you guys have Audible? You guys are driving to home care assessments? Download them. They're great. So the 80-20% principle by Richard Cox says, and this is backed by decades of studies, he says that 80% of your results come from just 20% of your efforts, right? If you think about your accounts, your marketing people, they get most of their referrals from a very small group of people. Maybe your social workers that love you, or your rehab directors, your wellness directors. Just a few of them give you the majority of your business, right? The problem is that most entrepreneurs work on the 80% that don't move the needle, right? So delegation allows you to focus on high impact 20% that actually drives growth. So as business owners, as managers, your goal is revenue. If revenue runs out, your company will wither away. So at the start, cash flow is your 20%. So the next one, buy back your time. I've read this book so many different times and it's revolutionized the way that I think. Because he says that you don't just hire people to get things off your plate, you hire people to get back your time. Your time is your most valuable asset. So the low value tasks need to be outsourced. You're no longer paid to do things, but hire smart doers. So the E-Myth talks about business owners get stuck working in their business instead of on their business, right? Who makes time in here to do strategic planning, strategic growth initiatives? To grow, you need systems. You need systems that allow your business to run with or without you. Delegation isn't just helpful, it's essential to building a business, again, that doesn't involve you in every little detail. Do you guys feel like your employees are asking you guys for everything? They can't make decisions on their own, and that's tiring, right? It keeps you stuck in the weeds. So your goal is to build a company that runs better without you. So the bottom line, all these books says delegation isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. By embracing some of these principles we're learning, you can reclaim time, reduce burnout for you and your team, and create a company that thrives with or without you. So some of the top millionaires in the world, they adopt what we call a forever student mindset. And I love this. Their houses are filled with libraries, and you won't catch them doom scrolling Instagram for hours on end, because all it takes is one good idea to change everything. And so let me share with you guys one of those ideas. It's called the buyback loop of audit, transfer, fill. So this idea has allowed me to level up again and again and again in my business. So when I started my business back in 2022, and to be honest, most of my adult life, I had this GSD attitude, get shit done attitude, where I was taking on everything myself. Does this sound familiar? Do you guys have the GSD mentality? But maybe it's someone else on your team. So don't just think about yourselves, guys, don't be selfish. Think about your team. Someone in your team that is always exhausted, always late, always not meeting deadlines because they're doing everything themselves. But let me tell you why that mindset has to shift. Working hard can only get you guys so far, right? So once I proved my idea that using virtual assistants for home care was a big hit, I got buried. I got buried in emails. I was doing all the hiring. I was doing all the onboarding, demos, everything, right? My company stalled because I was focused on doing everything instead of building teams and systems. I realized that I wasn't running my business was running me. And the lack of streamlined processes made me the bottleneck of my own company. But this is how I turned it around. I implemented the buyback loop. I started by auditing my time. And then I hired key roles to take ownership of those tasks, effectively replacing myself every 3 to 6 months. For example, the first thing you gotta do, admin. You guys, if you don't hire an assistant, guess what? You are the assistant. You're an overpaid assistant that's not really doing it that great either, right? So the first thing, I hired an assistant for my admin. She does my emails. You guys can email me right now, and someone with Regina is gonna email you back. It's not me, it's my VA. Then I hired an operations manager. She changed my company because she taught all of my virtual assistants how to build standard operating procedures for our clients. How nice is that for you guys if you had an SOP for recruiting, for on-call, for scheduling? She created tasks, she created accountability and transparency systems like end-of-day reports, so you always know what your virtual assistant did that day. So this changed us from being a simple virtual assistant company to being a long-term growth strategy partner, right? So I have some companies here at Synergy that have 3 to 5 virtual assistants from us. And it's nice because, again, we're just not waiting for you to tell us what to do. We know your business from a very deep level, and we can execute without you being involved in everything. So as my business grew, I continued this loop. I hired a success manager because onboarding took a lot of time and I didn't really like doing it. I hired a recruiter who hired faster and better virtual assistants, an HR manager that built training programs for every role. So if you hire us for recruiting, scheduling, or on-call, there's a training program associated with that. I was talking to owners here. He was like, how do I train my caregivers? And I said, that's something you gotta focus on, my man. And if you don't wanna focus on it, then you have to hire someone that will focus on it. But each time I hired someone, it gave me more time to focus on, again, my 20%, which is strategic growth. Initiatives like building power partnerships, right? I work with Aaron Markham. I work with Sarah Barker. I work with Steve Weiss. I wanted to get Ascension Business Solutions to be recognized as one of the best virtual assistant firms in America. Not the biggest, we're not the biggest, but I want to be the best. Every time I transferred a task to someone who could do it better, faster, and with more passion, it allowed me to fill up my time with higher value activities. And I feel like I can take time off, right? I went from having no breaks in 16 months, but now I feel like a European. I just like take a whole month off in August and a whole month off in December and not worry that my company's gonna burn down every time I leave. So today I'm laser focused on my strategic growth. I wanna get into Canada, in the UK, in Australia, something only I can do as an owner. I wonder if you guys wanna take on more territories, more zip codes, buy into another state. That's your strategic growth, but what's stopping you from doing that right now? So the buyback loop isn't just a strategy. It's a mindset that allows you to focus on what truly matters all the time, right? It's very strategic. So now you might be wondering, what does this have to do with me? What's in it for me, Regina? Do you guys know what your 20% is? What is stopping you from achieving your 20%? How much of your time is spent putting out fires every day? Answering emails? Are you stuck behind your computer? And if you're doing all those things, then how much are you dedicating to building your company, growing your revenue, enjoying your life? As owners, we need to do what's required, not what's desired. So let's go through this framework together. We're going to talk about all of these steps because success starts with intentionality. And here's a clear roadmap. You guys have a workbook in front of you. And this is the part where you should use it. So first things first, your time is your most valuable resource. So how much is it actually worth? Right? There's a formula for this. You take your annual income goal, not your revenue, not your profits, but your annual income goal, right? As an owner of your company, maybe you want to make $100,000 the first year, or $200,000, or $500,000. But your annual goal, income goal, you divide that by the hours of the week that you want to work, divide that by the weeks in the year. So for example, when I left my corporate job, I was getting paid about $250. And I told myself, I will not make less than $200,000 a year in 2 years after starting my company. So my hourly value is 100 divided by 40 divided by 50 is $100 per hour. If you're paying an operations manager $100,000, or your business development girlies, you're paying her $100,000, then her hourly value is $50 an hour. Ask yourself, are you spending time on high-value tasks that align with your hourly value? Or are you doing things that are low-value activities that could easily be delegated for much less? Is your team, your top paid employees, focusing on high-impact work? Or are they doing tasks, then again, that could be delegated for like $10, $15 an hour? So here's a practical example. I don't like cleaning my house that much. I don't like scrubbing toilets. I don't like folding laundry. And so what I did is I found a company, and I outsourced this to them. I found a company, they send 2 girls, and they clean my house for 4 hours. My hourly value is $100 versus $26, their hourly value. Isn't that a no-brainer? But who's still cleaning their house?
I'm not. That was the first thing I outsourced.
Exactly. Outsource it. I got a robot that will clean my floors, mop and sweep for $700. That might sound expensive, but that little bugger cleans my floors twice a week. But again, this cleaning company, I paid $210 to get 8 hours back of my own time. And what do I do with those 8 hours? So what do you like doing with your time?
I like to go
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like just out of the house on the mountain.
I love it. Love
I
it.
haven't been snowboarding in 2 years because I don't have time right now.
Exactly. Anybody else? What do you guys love doing? Louisa?
Going out with the grandkids.
Spending time with your family, right? So with that 8 hours, I get to pretend that I love pickleball with my husband. I get to go on boozy brunches with my girlfriends and go shopping, boozy shopping. That's what I like to do with my time, right? So think about those things. What are some practical ways that you can delegate today? Get a robot. So, exactly. So audit your time. Again, you guys have in your workbook a really easy table, but you have to dedicate some time to this. So next week, when we get back, or the week after, probably next week, really write down what you did starting at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or if you have your managers do this, I want you guys to really see what they're doing because you have to know where your time is going, right? And then with your hourly value that you just determined, cross-reference that. You can see if they're high value or low value. And then you can see if there's something that you can delegate or not, right? Please, if you guys do this, I would say at least give it 2 to 3 days minimum. Then once you have decided what you want to delegate, this is where a lot of people, you can transfer it. So again, the GSD mentality cannot get you to where you want to be. You have to transfer it. So you can hire internally or outsource to a trusted partner. So reclaiming your time means that empowering others to handle the 80% so you can focus on your 20%. So when you hire internally, what is this for? Operations manager, your administrator, your sales team, something that requires close collaboration, intimate knowledge of your industry. But outsourcing, have you guys considered outsourcing as another option? Why is there 3 virtual assistant firms that they made us all compete upstairs, right? Because it's cost effective, it's scalable. What's nice with outsourcing is that you get to bypass really expensive salaries, right? We use Greater Chicago because it's very on par with the national average of hiring an in-house recruiter, scheduler, let's say. But a lot of people think, oh, 60,000 is not bad. No, you gotta add on 15%, 11 to 15%, sometimes 16% in taxes. Guess what? You gotta pay them benefits, PTO, sick time off, all the national holidays, you guys gotta pay for that. Another thing is admin costs, hiring them, training them, recruiting them, giving them a laptop, right? But I hire them, I train them. I train them for 80 to 120 hours before they even come to you guys. I manage them throughout the year. Benefits is super important to me as well because as an owner, I want my VAs to be like, this is the best job that I've ever had. This is gonna allow me to buy a home for my kids, a car for my family, you know? And when I have happy VAs, I have happy clients. And when there's happy clients, there's happy Regina. So if you compare 32,000 versus, let's just call this 80, right? This is national average, but what if you're in Maryland? You're in Washington, California, New York, Hawaii. We save our clients about $50,000 per hire. There are senior helpers, there's Synergy companies here right now that have 3 to 5 virtual assistants from us. So we save them $250,000 a year. So that's why there's so many, that's why using outsourcing is an option that you guys should consider.
I keep getting stuck on virtual. These are real people.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm thinking like AI, like virtual caregiver is like a fake caregiver, computer person, like AI. But these are real virtual meeting. They're not in our physical office.
Exactly, exactly. And I actually invited 2 of our current clients here today because I could toot my horn all day long, right? But I think you guys want to know directly from them, how is it going? And so there is going to be an opportunity for you guys to ask them questions. How's it going? What were the problems? What were the challenges? And more importantly, how's your company now? So audit transfer, this is a big one. Now that you've either hired from within or hired outsourced, how do you know that you can trust someone with your company, right? This is your baby. This is your baby that you poured your heart and soul, blood, sweat, and tears into. So I'm going to give you my baby. Do not drop my baby. If you drop my baby on her head, I will kick you out of my house and you're never allowed back in, right? So that's the problem that we have as owners, as control freaks, is how can I trust you? You guys, it's a mentality, it's a mindset. So the 1-3-1 rule is something I learned a long time ago. It's the way you guide your employees. So if they give you a problem, you give it back to them like a hot potato, like, nope, that's for you. And you say, did you do your 1-3-1? Did you take time to do your 1-3-1 yet? So 1-3-1 means identifying what the number one problem is. A problem well identified is half solved. Then tell them to give you their top 3 most viable solutions. This forces them to do research, right? And then ask them to give you their number 1 recommendation. So for example, I had a virtual recruiter say, Regina, my client has a recruiting problem. I said, did you do your 1-3-1 yet? And she said, no. I said, go back, schedule some time with me tomorrow. I'm really excited to hear about your solution. And so she came back the next day. She said, the problem is that I have, the client has an application, it's 47 pages long. I said, well, no wonder why caregivers aren't applying. I wouldn't even apply for that. And I said, give me your top 3 most viable solutions. She did. And then her number 1 recommendation was, we need to consolidate this into bite-sized pieces. So if the caregiver can't even fill out the first 3 pages, then they can't fill out 47 pages. So that she did that. She implemented it with her owner. And guess what? The applicants started coming through. So the 1-3-1, you guys, it's so powerful because guess what? It builds confidence and leadership skills. You're building leaders around you instead of you being, again, the bottleneck of your own company. So once they do that, ask them to create an SOP, a standard operating procedure. These SOPs, you guys, they don't have to look like these boring business documents. It should look like a children's book. Lots of pictures, lots of arrows, highlight that. It should be like a roadmap from A to B. And then have them present it back to you, right? Why? Why don't we trust people is because we don't feel like they understand, right? But what if they show us that they do understand? Then ask them to do end of day reports or at least an end of week report. How many interviews did you do? How many resumes did you screen? How many people came to orientation? How many people did you disqualify? Accountability. And this one's a hard one for us, control freaks. Manage your expectations. When I hire someone, if they could do it 80% the way I do it, I'm happy with that. I'm not saying we can't get them to 100%, but at least get them, be okay with the 80%, you guys. Be okay with them making mistakes. Be okay with giving them feedback and helping them get to 100%. Resist the urge to take it back and be like, you know what? I'll do it myself. Don't do that, right? So a little bit of discipline on our end, because if I can get someone to manage my inbox 80% of the time and spend dinner with my husband uninterrupted, that's 100% better every time, right? Then, this is an important one. Learn to identify and avoid the whirlwind. These are like low value tasks that pull you away from your strategic growth. Sometimes as owners and managers, we will even say, oh, I'll do that. I'll do it because it'll be faster if I do it. No, let your team deal with it. You've trained them. They've shown you that you can trust them. Let them deal with it. This means don't get dragged into countless meetings that don't involve your unique expertise, right? I went into a meeting about font one time, about our newsletter. I walked out. That is not a good use of my time. Screening a flood of caregivers because you have an open shift to fill. But if you hire a virtual recruiter, let them do that. It might just take a little bit more time. So the answer is practice discipline, right? And let the whirlwind pass you by. Be super disciplined with your time, and if you haven't, outsource it immediately. And stay committed to activities that actually align with your hourly value and grow your business. So audit, transfer, fill. Fill means filling your time with high-level activities. These are facing these back burner projects, right? Is your website pretty crappy, or is your recruiting program not so good? You don't know how to train your caregivers? That is those back burner projects. Building power partnerships. As the owner, so I had someone come up to me and said, can your virtual assistants do marketing for us? I said, no. But what is taking up your time as an owner that's stopping you from getting out into the field? Those are the things I want to take off your plate, because you guys are the best marketers out there. Or if you have a marketer right now and she's constantly in the office instead of out in the field, that's also a red flag. Attending industry conferences like this. You guys don't know how many times I go to these conferences and I see owners run out because they have to take a call. Even worse, I see people spend thousands of dollars to attend these conferences, like Steve Weiss or a boot camp, and they're on their computer the whole time. If you can't leave your company for just a few days without having to do that's a big sign. It's time to delegate. Expanding your services, right? We have a coach in here. The coach is probably going to want you guys to get more zip codes, more territories, get into a new state. Again, what's stopping you guys from doing that? Maybe you guys need a specialized program like post-acute, dementia care, rehab. I was talking to one of our clients and he said he does surgical because he lives in LA, and guess who's getting a lot of surgical work? People from LA. Strengthening community ties. How are you guys ensuring that your company is positioned as a trusted and engaging partner? So I'm going to stop there, and I would love for you guys to be able to talk to our current clients right now who have been using virtual assistants, because I think there's a lot of questions there. There's a lot of hesitation. It comes from a place of fear, but maybe this is a good time where you guys could ask. So I have Monica Conroy.
Hello, everyone.
And I have Kathy Root.
Not so good, not the best. And, I would like to kind of upgrade a little bit.
Yeah.
But I would also think that, they're like a team, there's 4 of them at least, that if you kick one, you're going to really kick 4. And that could be devastating in the big picture.
So if you say, you guys, I see a path forward and I need to hire virtual assistants because they can do it better, faster, and with more passion, then that's your decision as the owner.
Have you ever heard of kicking a porcupine?
But I've seen companies though that they've cleaned house.
Yeah.
They took over a territory. I'm working with a company right now that took over a territory, and unfortunately, he inherited a team that didn't have the best mentality. They had bad habits. And so he was ready, but before he cleaned house, he had to have a good solution. It's like there's studies about negativity. If you put one negative person in a room, the whole room's productivity goes down by 15%. So sometimes you gotta cut out cancer. I'm just being real. But your team's buy-in is very important. If you're going to bring in a VA, you have to tell them, you guys, you're the one that's been telling me you're burnt out. You're the one that's telling me you don't want to be on call anymore. You're telling me that you never get to hang out with your husband and your kids and your daughter and your kid or go to a sports game anymore. So now I'm bringing you support. I expect you to support them.